is right or it's wrong. It's really, really simple. Either what I saw was right or it's wrong. I am, for instance, against the death penalty. What the person did to get the death penalty, it really doesn't matter to me. I don't care if they were selling a nickel bag of marijuana or if they were a serial killer. I am against the death penalty.
That is honestly one of the best possible responses. It's so refreshing to see someone doing this on mainstream media too, because you don't often get people who just put it as like fact of the matter, just very plainly. No one has a right to apartheid. Came into a time when the proliferation of drone technology was suddenly way more accessible to the American military. They used it on a disastrous scale globally. There was, of course, the destruction of Libya, as well as a lot of other things that happened under the Obama administration. So while typically a president, even if they are a better president than, say, and I would say that he was a better president than George Bush, it's one of those things where on one end, if you're trying to improve the local and domestic policies of your populace, such as trying to bring in things like healthcare, for example, or try to allow more accessibility to healthcare through a program like the Affordable Care Act, there's still going to be the horrifying reality of American imperialism globally that you have to deal with. To see this poet go from that to now speaking on all these major platforms, because not everyone has the ability to go onto NBC, to go onto CBS, to go onto The Daily Show and talk about the plight of Palestinians is truly a beautiful thing to behold.
In the book, Coates reflects on his emotional first trip to Africa to visit Ta-Nahesi Coates. Then he takes readers to Columbia, South Carolina, where he reports on the attempted banning of one of his books on race. And finally, Coates travels to the Middle East to witness the Israeli-Palestinian conflict firsthand. Ta-Nahesi Coates, good morning. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. Good morning, guys.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. You say that this book is written specifically for writers, stating that the task for young writers should be nothing less than changing the world. Why do you feel like writers should bear that responsibility?
Saving the world. Saving the world, just to be really specific. Writing is how we interpret so much of everything that is around us. The Message is a political book. It argues that much of our politics actually happens before we walk into a voting booth, that our choices around us, that who we believe is human, who we don't believe is human, what policies we believe should be in the world, which policies we don't, are actually shaped largely by writing and the stories we tell. And so I believe that writers, and particularly young writers, have so much to do in the politics and in this time when, obviously we have so much conflict and there's so many quote-unquote issues to be dealt with.
Ta-Nahesi, I want to dive into the Israel-Palestine section of the book. It's the largest section of the book. And I have to say, when I read the book, I imagine if I took your name out of it, took away the awards and the acclaim, took the cover off the book, the publishing house goes away, the content of that section would not be out of place in the backpack of an extremist.
Wow. I don't know if this is perhaps a biased commentator in any way, shape, or form to come in there. So if we took away all your accolades, your life's work, everything that you've accomplished, all of your incredible writing and all that kind of stuff, and suddenly this was just left in a vacuum in and of itself, they would show you to be a radical extremist. So what do you have to say to that?
And so then I found myself wondering, why does Ta-Nahesi Coates, who I've known for a long time, read his work for a long time, very talented, smart guy, leave out so much? Why leave out that Israel is surrounded by countries that want to eliminate it? Why leave out that Israel deals with terror groups that want to eliminate it? Why not detail anything of the first and the second intifada, the cafe bombings, the bus bombings, the little kids blown to bits? And is it because you just don't believe that Israel, in any condition, has a right to exist?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, tell me what you really feel.
Well, I would say the perspective that you just outlined, there is no shortage of that perspective in American media. That's the first thing I would say. I am most concerned always with those who don't have a voice, with those who don't have the ability to talk. I have asked repeatedly in my interviews whether there is a single network, mainstream organization in America with a Palestinian American bureau chief or correspondent who actually has a voice to articulate their part of the world. I've been a reporter for 20 years. The reporters of those who believe more sympathetically about Israel and its right to exist don't have a problem getting their voice out.
That's a great response too, because it's basically you're being asked, so you're a radical extremist who won't tell the whole story is what I'm hearing, and then respond with the version of events that you're describing is the version of events that's basically propagandized in all of mainstream media. You get that all the time. That's basically what we're all saturated with. We grow up with this shit. You know, this is what we're always being told, that this is the only democracy in the Middle East, that they are in fact defending themselves against all of these potential bad actors who want to destroy Israel, and that within Israel it's the only secular society, it's the only open society, the pro-LGBTQ plus country in the Middle East, even though you can't get married if you're gay, but still more so than the other countries around it. And why won't you tell that? Why don't you tell that narrative?
What I saw in Palestine, what I saw on the West Bank, what I saw in Haifa in Israel, what I saw in the South Hebron Hills, those were the stories that I have not heard. And those were the stories that I was most occupied with. I wrote a 260-page book. It is not a treatise on the entirety of the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
But if you were to read this book, you would be left wondering, why does any of Israel exist? What a horrific place, committing horrific acts on a daily basis. So I think the question is central and key. If Israel has a right to exist, and if your answer is no, then I guess the question becomes, why do the Palestinians have a right?
I think at this point, the way we should be reframing this now is that no one has a right to run an apartheid state. No one has a right to do any form of, ethnic superiority over the rest of its citizens based on, again, characteristics or traits that are being determined by a far-right government at that time. No one has a right to genocide. No one has a right to ethnic cleansing. No one has a right to that. When you hear, like, does Israel have a right to defend itself? There's a lot that's loaded into that statement, right? Everyone has a right to defend themselves. What I really feel is that Palestinians don't have a right to defend themselves. And if they even try to defend themselves, well, then they're horrifying terrorists, they're terrorist organizations. If anyone tries to help them from being genocided, those are terrorists, those are terrorist organizations.
Why do 20 different Muslim countries have a right to exist?
My answer is that no country in this world establishes its ability to exist through rights. Countries establish their ability to exist through force. As America did. And so I think this question of right to Israel does exist. It's a fact. The question of its right is not a question that I would be faced with any other country.
But you write a book that delegitimizes the pillars of Israel. It seems like an effort to topple the whole building of it. So I come back to the question, and it's what I struggled with throughout this book. What is it that so particularly offends you about the existence of a Jewish state that is a Jewish safe place and not any of the other states out there?
There's nothing that offends me about a Jewish state. I am offended by the idea of states built on ethnocracy, no matter where they are.
Muslim included.
I would not want a state where any group of people laid down their citizenship rights based on ethnicity. The country of Israel is a state in which half the population exists on one tier of citizenship, and everybody else that's ruled by Israelis exists on another tier, including Palestinian Israeli citizens. The only people that exist on that first tier are Israeli Jews. Why do we support that? Why is that okay? I'm the child of Jim Crow. I'm the child of people that were born into a country where that was exactly the case, of American apartheid. I walk over there and I walk through the occupied territories and I walk down a street in Hebron, and a guy says to me, I can't walk down the street unless I profess my religion. I'm with another path. No. I want to. This is very, very important.
It is important. It is
extremely important.
Yeah, let me lay it down.
I'm working with the person that is guiding me is a Palestinian whose father, whose grandfather and grandmother was born in this town. And I have more freedom to walk than he does. He can't ride on certain roads. He can't get water in the same way that Israeli citizens who live less than a mile away from him can.
And why
is that okay?
Why is that? Why is there no agency in this book for the Palestinians? They exist in your narrative merely as victims of the Israelis, as though they were not offered peace at any juncture.
It's interesting, too, because these are a lot of the same arguments and techniques that are used for a variety of things. If you bring up, say, the plight of black people in America or the history of racism towards black people in America, you're often met by people who say, oh, why are you taking away black people's agency? They don't have the ability to work hard, get jobs, live the American dream. It's really infantilizing of you to try and say that they might face all these obstacles along the way because of what you call systemic racism and oppression and the history of that and all that kind of stuff. It feels like you're trying to take their agency away.
as though they don't have a stake in this as well. What is their role in the lack of a Palestinian?
I have a very, 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 very moral compass about this. And again, perhaps it's because of my ancestry. Either apartheid is right or it's wrong. It's really, really simple. Either what I saw was right or it's wrong. I am, for instance, against the death penalty. What the person did to get the death penalty, it really doesn't matter to me. I don't care if they were selling a nickel bag of marijuana or if they were a serial killer. I am against the death penalty.
That is honestly one of the best possible responses. It's so refreshing to see someone doing this on mainstream media too, because you don't often get people who just put it as like fact of the matter, just very plainly. No one has a right to apartheid. No one has a right to genocide. There are so many other examples throughout human history where we wouldn't frame it this way. If someone is like, there's a system of apartheid being enacted in which there's a separate quality of life for two different groups, you wouldn't immediately be like, oh, well, but does Israel have a right to defend itself? Do you believe in Israel's right to exist? Are you going to answer that? Are you going to say right now? I mean, if you don't answer that properly, you seem like a radical extremist to me.
I am against a state that discriminates against people on the basis of ethnicity. I'm against that. There is nothing the Palestinians could do that would make that okay for me. My book is not based on the hyper-morality
What's the last
of the
message you
Palestinian
want?
people.
Which also is really good for undercutting when there's pink washing of this issue, because oftentimes, especially if you are someone who's LGBTQ+ and you talk about you're also for Palestinian liberation, they'll be like, well, they'd kill you. If you arrived there, they'd murder you instantaneously. You'd be stoned to death by those brutal Palestinians who just hate the gays so much. So are you okay with that? I think, honestly, there's a bigger risk of me dying if I was in Gaza by dying because I'm in Gaza, because Israel's bombing the fuck out of Gaza and forcibly starving everyone in Gaza. I think that's probably going to result in much more suffering than, say, if I arrived there and they were immediately like, wait, are you a gay? Are you one of those gays? Oh, well, yeah, things are going to be bad for you now.
In lessons, because many people feel it's complicated. You say it's not complicated. Less than 20 seconds. What's your message?
Less than 20 seconds. I want people to read the book.
Well,
And I don't make the assumption that somebody would just read the book and have read nothing else about Israel and Palestine.
You're still invited to High Holidays. I'll see you at the show.
Ta-Nahesi,
I mean
so
it,
much.
buddy.
That'll do it for us.
Thank you.
Out of time. The message goes on sale tomorrow.
That was excellent. That was a very adversarial interview that I thought he handled excellently.
Do you get frustrated? And this is something that I think about sometimes.
I relate to this as a writer. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bravery in people who actually have the courage to do what he's doing, which is to stand up for the powerless, to stand up for people who are oppressed, and then to actually write about them so that the rest of the world can know about it, and then use a lot of the the social credit that he's already earned through his lifelong career, and obviously being a poet within the framework of the Obama administration and stuff like that, to then be able to go on these TV shows, like to go on the CBS, to go on to NBC, to go on to the Daily Show and actually talk about these kind of issues. Whereas so much of Western media right now is failing the moment, almost to the point of just being outward complicit in propagandizing and normalizing war crimes and atrocities. How long have people been waiting for the BBC to finally make a headline and not use passive voice, right? And not just speak about another strike may have harmed people in Lebanon. And that's the headline. And it's like, oh, people in Lebanon suffering under crumbling buildings. And again, that's another headline, but that's it. That's all there is to it. And then you're like, well, what's causing this? Are the buildings just randomly exploding? Are people just falling onto bullets? Are bombs just finding their way magically out of the air into the sky? How is this taking place?
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/The Serfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Puppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood. With additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.